I'm going to call this meeting to order. This is a meeting of the Representative Town Meeting of Darien, Connecticut. It's a regular meeting. And the first item is acceptance of the agenda. I wanted to ask you to allow me to make just a couple of changes. One is to add Jeff Krause as a Town Technology Committee representative, to vote him to do that. And the other thing is just to move the order of presentations, to move Francis Pickering to the top, so that we have the first selectman here to introduce him tonight. And I think appropriately we would move that up to the first presentation. The other announcement, so is there any objection to making those changes to the agenda?
Raise your hands if you have an objection. I don't see any hands raised, Seth.
Okay, I thank you for that. Next is approval of the minutes of December 6th. Can I have a motion, please, to approve the minutes?
Hang on a second. Michael Casolo.
Thank you, Michael. And second, please.
Barbara Thorne.
Thank you, Barbara. Are there any changes to the minutes?
If you have a change, please raise your hand. I'm not seeing any, Seth.
Wonderful. Then we will vote to approve the minutes of December 6th.
You want me to? I will send the
You're ready
poll.
to vote, so if you'd go ahead and put that up, Kate.
Okay, I'm going to close the poll. And the it's 99% in favor, 1 abstention.
Wonderful. Then the motion passes. Minutes are approved. Announcements. There is an announcement from the Rules Technology Subcommittee, which is considering options for hybrid meetings. And we need information about how many RTM members have basic cable service in their homes, because that affects what you can do in a hybrid meeting. So to assist with this, we're asking you to respond to a 1-question survey for RTM members. Respond to a 1-question survey when you receive it in the next couple of days. It's being done by the Technology Committee, and we're trying to see how to develop the possibility of how hybrid meetings would work. The next is we still need person from the RTM to serve on the Blight Review Board. And so if there are any friends among you in the RTM who know of another friend who might be good for that, please encourage them to put their name into the town clerk so that we can help fill out this board. We had a resignation, and so we need to replace the resignation. The next item on the agenda is a vote to have Jeff Kraus from District 1 serve on the Town Technology Committee. If I can have a motion to do that.
Patty Baumgartner.
Thank you. And a second?
Bert von Stupelnagel.
Thank you, Bert. I sent out earlier today a resume from Jeff and also a description of why he's so interested in being on this committee. And he's certainly well qualified, and I think we're fortunate. So what I might do is just, first of all, just ask if there are any other nominees.
If you would like to nominate someone, please raise your hand. I don't see any, Seth.
Great. That's good. Is there anybody who had anything to add about Jeff?
I'm seeing no hands raised.
All right. Well, then we're ready to vote. So we will proceed to vote on Jeff Kraus.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to close the poll. You have 99% in favor, 1% abstaining.
That's great. Then it's unanimous. Jeff, thank you very much for stepping up. We look forward to, with some excitement, to your contribution to the committee. The next item is presentations. We try early in the season after the state of the town to bring in presenters to talk about from outside of town, to talk about what they're doing and how what they're doing might impact the town of Darien. I thank you for allowing me to change the order of presentation here and to introduce Francis Pickering, the first selectman, Monica McNally.
Thank you, Seth. Good evening, RTM. It's so great to be here. I wish I could be in person, or we could all be in person, but it's terrific to be back in front. And welcome to all the new RTM members. And welcome, Jeff. Thank you so much for stepping up for the Technology Committee. I think you will be a really wonderful addition to it. So Darien is one of 18 municipalities that's in the Western Connecticut Council of Governments group known as WestCog. And WestCog representatives meet monthly to discuss and consider issues that are impacting our region. I represent Darien on WestCog, and last week I was voted in as a member at large on the executive committee. With us tonight is Francis Pickering, and he is the executive director of WestCog, and we'll give an update on the initiatives happening now. He was an inaugural member of WestCog back in 2015. He sits on several state legislative committees, including the Connecticut Advisory Commission on Intergovernmental Relations, and also on the newly formed Commission on Connecticut's Development and Future, in addition to the Connecticut Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Board, and he's also on the National Policy Committee of the Association of Metropolitan Planning Organization. And if he's not busy enough with all of that, he's also a technology wizard. So please welcome Francis Pickering. Thank you.
Thank you for the introduction, Monica, and welcome to WestCog, and congratulations on your election to the Executive Board. As Monica said, we're one of 9 regional councils of governments. We serve a population of about 610,000, which makes us the fastest growing region in the state, and a region that's very dynamic and important to the state's economic future, accounting for about 40% of the state's income tax revenue. A council of governments is it's really a Connecticut creation. The term exists in other parts of the country, but it has a different meaning. We are a political subdivision of the state. We are established under state law. Our board comprises the chief elected officials, or the mayors and first selectmen of the 18-member communities. And it's a forum for cooperation and collaboration among the member communities. Any issues that they think might be better addressed through a regional approach are elevated to the COG for discussion, and when action is taken, passed on to the COG staff for work. Under state law, a COG has essentially all of the powers of a municipality. So we can do anything a municipality can do, that is if the COG so decides to do it. Everything from solid waste disposal to animal control to vocational training and education, fire protection, data management. There's a very long list in the statutes, and the COG is familiar with these options, and if they want us to pursue that, we will, and sometimes we do. A COG also, under state law, can act in place of a county. As you all know, we haven't had county government in Connecticut since 1960, but we are charged under state law with the ability to carry out activities vis-a-vis the federal government that a county could, and we've been working over the last couple of years to help better connect the region to the federal government so we can operate more programs at the regional level and potentially apply for more grants and receive more federal funding directly. Right now, here's what WestCog does, and if you may have heard some of this before, we don't change that fast, but we operate in several areas. One of them is transportation planning. Under federal law, any federal transportation funds that are to be expended in an urbanized area, which includes southwestern Connecticut, must be approved by a so-called metropolitan planning organization. And WestCog hosts 2 metropolitan planning organizations. We plan for the future of the region's transportation system about 40 years out. We keep a 4-year budget called the Transportation Improvement Program. Any project that Darien would like to see federally funded, or the Connecticut Department of Transportation would like to see federally funded, must come to WestCog for approval. This setup is intentional. The federal government in the 1960s recognized that state departments of transportation sometimes pursued projects that did not have full regional support, and as a consequence, were unable to be fully implemented, and perhaps funds were not used in the most effective manner possible. We've worked on a number of projects in the region. Some include the Darien Route 1 corridor study and the Rowan Heights Station area study. We've had projects in Stamford, such as Long Ridge and High Ridge. Stamford Bus and Shuttle Study, Transit-Oriented Development Studies up the Danbury branch. And probably of interest to you right now, we are working on 3 studies. One is the New Canaan branch noise abatement study, looking to see if we can quiet the train horns, which we know is a headache for many of you. A regional congestion hotspot study to see whether we can use targeted interventions at low cost to address congestion. And a value capture study in the New Canaan and Danbury branches to determine how to fund improvements on those lines. We also are active in economic development. We are a federally designated economic development district, so any projects that receive EDA, Economic Development Administration funds, must come through the COG for coordination and generally approval. We meet on a regular basis within what we call our Western Connecticut Economic Development District. It includes a variety of economic stakeholders and representatives from throughout the region, and we are currently working on a new economic development strategy for the region. Our old strategy, which the COG adopted in 2017, is up for review this year, and we're going to retool it to address a post-pandemic reality. We know a lot has changed in terms of work in the labor force. We've also undertaken, we're undertaking a study on regional broadband. How can we get fiber to every home and every business, and potentially fund that under the IIJA, the recently passed infrastructure law, and the regional agriculture viability study. We're also working with a number of leading corporate tenants in the region, including Bank of America, Webster, Synchrony, FactSet, IBM, Indeed, Slalom, and Octagon, to help create what's called a regional sector partnership to move forward our tech and data cluster. Beyond economic development and transportation, we are very active in land use and community planning. Every proposal for zoning or subdivision change in your town must come to the COG. With a few exceptions for review, it's advisory only, but we do provide that service. We also review your plan of conservation development, and we produce a regional plan of conservation and development. Our last was done in 2019 to help synchronize and coordinate land use policies among communities. We undertake from time to time special studies in land use, community, and environmental planning. We did a 5G report and guidance document in 2020 that received a statewide award. We recently released a document providing guidance on compliance with Public Act 2129, the zoning reform bill, about how to bring your zoning into compliance with that with respect to water quality issues in Long Island Sound. And we'll be providing additional assistance in the future on other aspects of that bill. We have worked very closely over the last year with planning and zoning commissions on affordable housing issues and zoning reform. Two last things we work on. One is public safety and health, emergency preparedness and response. We are responsible for preparing a natural hazard mitigation plan, which serves the region and entitles you as a municipality to access certain FEMA funds in advance of a disaster to decrease your exposure and increase resiliency. And we coordinate very closely with the Division of Emergency Management and Homeland Security on a variety of issues, including the COVID-19 response. In fact, we have held 54 meetings of the COG specifically to address the pandemic response. And I've been told by the members they found it very helpful. We've helped disseminate policies, information, and provide shared legal advice. And in that area, we also carry out sometimes studies of interest to the COG. We are concluding a public safety study looking at 911 call center consolidation, shared firing ranges, lockup and other facilities, potential for shared animal control, and also waste management. Last but not least, we are a data center for the region. So we are a partner to the Census Bureau. We provide a lot of data and analytical support for municipalities. If you have questions, please send them my way about data. We're happy to, resources permitting, undertake analysis to help you better run your town. We work closely with the Census Bureau, and we have an online GIS portal, regional GIS viewer showing parcel maps and layers of interest, as well as a lot of interesting data sources, spatial data sources that you can use and members of the public can use. And then perhaps what interests Monica most of all is we work very closely with partners and stakeholders throughout the region, from the federal level down to local. And that notably includes our state legislative delegation. Every year the COG passes or adopts a policy priority list. The COG did so at its January meeting, I believe last week, which will be presented to our legislators at next month's legislative reception. It really lays out what the priorities for the COG are for its members and for the COG in terms of everything from transportation to public health to the environment to land use planning to economic development. And that'll be posted on our website tomorrow, and I'm happy to talk about that. So, and then of course, throughout the legislative session, I am often in Hartford in person or virtually, and I communicate back to the region, our legislators, and to our chief elected officials about what's going on, both in Hartford and in DC, and how we can be involved to help benefit the region. So that was a ton in a very short amount of time. Hopefully you caught some of those words. I can be a fast talker, but I'm happy to answer any questions. I'm here at your disposal.
Francis, thank you very much. And we can see that when we define a full plate, we can look in your direction. Are there any questions for Francis?
If you have a question, please raise your hand. I'm not seeing any questions, Seth.
Oh, great. Well, then, thank you so much for participating.
My pleasure. And Seth, if I may just add, we can be found online at westcog, westcog.org. You can find my email on there. It's fpickering, F as in Francis, pickering@westcog.org. If you have questions, please feel free to direct them either to me or via Monica to me. I'm happy to help out.
Great. Well, there's only 100 of us here. So maybe we can focus any questions into the town clerk, and then we can go from there, or where Monica directs. We'll put it that way. Unless you want to listen to us for a while. Anyway.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We really appreciate your willingness to step in because we've heard a lot about the COG, but we really never had anybody stand up and just give us an overview of it. The next item on the agenda is an update on COVID-19 from David Knopf. David, thank you for coming before us again. Talk about somebody who watches change at high speed. I think you're in that category, and but we appreciate you giving us an update. Thank you. We need to get David's mic.
There you go.
Thank you, Seth. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to address the RTM. Happy New Year, everyone. So far, I'm not seeing much difference between this and the last one, but I have a couple of announcements before we get into our weekly report. This Saturday in the gym, we'll be doing we'll be having a clinic scheduled for the 5 to 11-year-olds. It's the second dose clinic from 12 to 3. This will be clinic number 56. Our first clinic for COVID response was held on January 20th. So we're a year into clinics and over 9,000 doses of vaccine administered. So this Saturday, we'll be doing the second dose clinics for the 5 to 11-year-olds. Beginning Monday, also, there's going to be a new test site in town, assuming that it gets off the ground, and that's going to be at St. John's Church on the Post Road. Once those plans are absolutely finalized, we'll be publicizing them with the hours, but this will be a state-sponsored testing site that will be free. They will be collecting insurance cards and billing insurance companies, but if you don't have insurance, you don't have to pay. So that's in the offing coming Monday. On February 12th, there's going to be a vaccine clinic being held at the United Methodist Church from 5 to 11, and that's going to be for, the age groups is for 5 to 11 and then 12 plus. So we never did have vaccine for the 12 to 16-year-olds. So there'll be an opportunity for those children to be able to get vaccine at the United Methodist Church on the 12th of February. That's a Saturday. And that's going to be, I believe that's also 12 to 5 at the United Methodist Church. And with that, I think I will go into our weekly report, which was posted last Tuesday. Kate, can we have the first slide, please? So this is a summary of cases from the beginning of time. All the way to the left is when COVID was first being reported, positive cases. And if you kind of go across from left to right, you'll come to January 2020, and you'll see we had it's right about in the middle of that chart. We had a high spot, January. And if you come across to all the way to the right, you'll see that we're not quite through with January, and we have high numbers once again. So there's a definite correlation with case counts, positivity, and the holidays. There's no question about it. Coming inside and people getting together again for the holidays, there's a correlation with positive COVID tests. Of course, this year we're doing a lot more testing than we did a year ago. Next slide, please. And this is our positivity case. Now, you could see here that right after the very first week of January, we had a huge spike in cases, to the point where our contact tracers could no longer keep up with following up, and we were no longer able to do break things down into break our charts down into age groups that were affected. Everybody across the state was completely overwhelmed. The data was coming in slower, and so we had to cut back in what we were doing with our contact tracing, to the point where now what we do is we're interviewing cases for those positives who are under 5 years old and over 65. That's where we do our contact tracing now. And it's not even so much contact tracing, but trying to get an understanding about how sick people are and providing some guidance, best practices for them. Next slide, please. The good news is that at least for the last week, the rate has come down, the positivity rate. We're seeing it even with the last few days from last week. We'll have a new weekly summary that will be out tomorrow. And I trust that we'll see that line will continue to decline. Certainly that's what the news has been throughout the state. The positivity rates are going down. Next slide, please. And we'll have a monthly summary for January coming up. Next slide, please. That's just a summary of what we've done with our vaccinations since November, with boosters and seasonal flu vaccine, pediatric doses. We have dispensed with booster clinics because of lack of interest. We had a clinic scheduled for last week and had 6 people signed up. And so what we did was, because each vial has 20 doses of vaccine, we reached out to Greaves Pharmacy to see if they could take the people who signed up for our clinic, because we didn't want to waste 14 doses of vaccine, because once you open the vial, you can't save it. It's got to be done that day. So since we only had 6 people sign up, Greaves did agree to take those folks, and we actually had 2 clinics scheduled. Both had 6 people, and Greaves took all of them. So at this point, we do not, after this Saturday, have any further clinics scheduled. The one that's scheduled at the church is being organized through the state. That wasn't our doing, and we're not involved with that. Next slide, please. And that just kind of breaks down where and who we gave vaccines to, a little bit more graphically. You can see the decline. The blue is the boosters, and we just ran. The public seemed to run out of interest for that. I think that there's boosters available in many locations, and people just who wanted it got it. Next slide, please. Our vaccination rates in town are extraordinary. I've been saying that all along. The only age group that seems to be lagging is the youngest ones, the 5 to 11-year-olds. And again, we're offering the clinic this week. There's another one coming up on the 12th of February, as I said, at the church. So we certainly encourage parents to get their kids vaccinated. All the data show that vaccines really help prevent severe illness. Next slide, please. And this is just, to compare rates for Connecticut versus Darien. Even our lowest vaccination rates for the 5 to 11 are much higher than the state rate. Fully vaccinated, 28% statewide. Ours is about 56%. Next slide. And of course, we do have we'll be adding to this once the other test location comes up. But this is our longstanding vaccination station at the train station parking lot on Leroy. And you can see from December 5th, for the last month, they haven't been providing us with data because they've been so overwhelmed with their testing. A couple of times, there were lines of cars out to the road from, I'm sure most of you know where their test location is, but we've been in communication with them to update their information to us so that we can provide it to you. And with that, that's the end of the weekly summary. As I said, we'll have a new one out tomorrow. Hopefully we'll see continuing decline in our case rates as we go forward. And I will avail myself to any questions at this point. Thank you.
Thank you very much. David, it's a difficult topic because it's complex, and I mean, I can picture you picking up the phone every day and trying to figure out, well, what do we got on what's the new one today? But anyway, are there any members of the RTM who have questions?
Ann Gill Holt.
Ann.
Thank you. I was just wondering, you had a lot of graphs about positivity. Do you have a graph of, say, the last month, or do you have the number of how many people have died of any kind of COVID in January or December and January?
In Darien?
Either, actually. I just want to know any numbers. I haven't heard anything about deaths as opposed to just the rate of positivity.
Yeah, and that's because we haven't had any deaths, knock on wood, if I could find some, but we haven't really had, in town, we really haven't had any deaths in quite some time, specifically related to COVID. Since the beginning of the pandemic, this is 2 years running, there have been 12 confirmed cases, and our investigation has found that of those 12, each person had a reason for being in the hospital other than COVID. And they didn't necessarily die from COVID, but they had COVID while they were in the hospital prior to dying. So it was a confounding issue. But we do not have any indication that with this latest surge that we've had any deaths in Darien associated with COVID, or hospitalizations for that matter. All our interviews are finding that we have a lot of testing being done, and people are reporting, some severe cold symptoms or, respiratory problems, but not enough to be hospitalized.
Thank you, David. Any others?
Martha Banks.
Martha?
Yes, the home testing kits, is that, how are you handling that? I assume, is it reflected at all in your positivity statistics or what?
Kate, would you scroll back to the cover of the weekly report, please? Because we have no idea of what's happening with the home test kits. So with the thousands that we've given out and thousands that people have gotten elsewhere, there's no way to capture that information. So it's not part of it. What we're doing is we're providing laboratory confirmed results. We do think the usefulness of that is it identifies trends. And you really can't pay that much attention to the numbers because, you know, so much is being missed because of the home test kits.
Okay. Any others?
Yeah, hang on a second. Carrie Cardone?
Carrie?
Carrie Cardone? You need to unmute yourself. I can't hear her.
Carrie, we can't hear you, unfortunately.
If you want to quickly type your question into the question box, we'll see if we can ask it.
While Carrie's doing that, are there any others?
Let's see. Nope. That's the only one.
I have one in the chat, and I
Okay.
was asked if the 12 plus clinics that the 12 plus clinic, will they offer boosters? I'll have to find out about that. That would be the 12 plus clinic is the one that will be at the church. I don't know because we're not organizing that clinic. We're only having the clinic on Saturday that's for the 5 to 11-year-olds. So there will be information that will be provided to the public about the clinic that's coming up at the church that will provide all that information.
Okay, Barbara Thorne has a question.
Barbara, thank you.
Barbara, you need to unmute yourself. Barbara, can you unmute yourself?
Got it. Wait. I'm okay. I want to thank you. I want to publicly thank you for all you have done to lead us through this and to do it in such a positive way. Thank you. You made me feel safe.
Thank you.
That's
Okay.
all.
Okay, I'm going to try and get that question, David. So is fully vaccinated including the booster?
The CDC is dodging that one. That's my answer.
Depends on who you talk.
No, see, everybody looks to CDC for that answer, and they keep threatening that they're going to say that. But it's best to protect yourself fully. I know I got my booster, so it technically is not the definition of fully vaccinated. They still say 2 doses is it. They being CDC and our state health department. But from a practical standpoint, at this point, it's also clear that the effectiveness of vaccine diminishes with time. So it would be a really good idea to get the booster if you're worried about COVID.
Okay, Curtis Butler. You need to unmute there you go.
Thank you. Just to that point about the CDC's guidance, I was just on the website because I was in discussions with another organization, and it still says the vaccination is not recommended for children under 16. So the guidance from the CDC is so outdated at this point, it has rendered itself completely useless.
It's been very difficult. It's been very difficult. And they still have some old guidance that's still posted, which really makes it hard to figure out which is the most recent guidance to follow.
Any others?
I don't have any more hands raised.
I would just say, David, that as a recipient of guidance this has been one of the most confusing things. I'm a guy who grew up in the polio era, and that was straightforward, as a matter of fact, compared to what we're going through here. For example, the statistics are reported as COVID, but we don't know what percentage of that is Omicron, which seems to be a lesser variety. And so if you're a person trying to assess risk, it's really hard to figure out, you know, what direction to go. The other thing is that, you know, you get guidance like 5 to 11-year-olds. It's a waste of time. They don't get it. They're fine, you know. And then right after that, you'll have somebody on a different station say, boy, if you're not getting those 5 to 11-year-olds, you know. And maybe you have some guidance for us to try and assess risk. And maybe it's unfair if it is, just say so. But that's the hardest thing for all of us to deal with.
Well, you know, and I think about that a lot, you know, relative risk, and it's different for everyone. You know, some people, you know, I've been asked, should I go to dinner at, you know, at the restaurant? And, you know, it has to do with what is your level of comfort, you know, and, you know, I think we have to be able to manage our lives in accordance to what we feel our acceptable risk level is, and you know, and really take it from there. But you know, again, I think the critical thing to look at is the fact that, you know, we've had 12, maybe 13 deaths associated with COVID in 2 years in Darien. Our case rates among our vaccination rate, first of all, is among the highest, if not the highest in the state. And our case rates are coming down rapidly. They're still fairly high, but most people are just reporting a cold. So, you know, I'm thinking we're headed in the right direction in many ways. And again, I want to salute all of the volunteers who've made all these vaccination clinics that we've held, because without them, we couldn't have done it. And, you know, we don't have the staff to do this. And the community came out in a huge way to make this all happen. And, you know, again, I salute the community for the response to COVID, because it's been phenomenal. It's been really, you know, as I said, 55, 56 clinics, 9,000 doses. There were a lot of people who participated in that, and it's been a wonderful experience and challenging experience, but a wonderful experience at the same time. And again, I want to thank the community. You know, the community has been wonderful to work with.
Well, we want to thank you for.
Seth?
Yes.
We wanted to try Ms. Cardone again.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought we got. Okay. Yes, please, Ms. Cardone.
Carrie Cardone, go ahead.
Carrie.
Okay, I'm not hearing her. Shannon Silsby.
Shannon? Hi, thanks. David, thanks so much for all of your leadership here. I did just want to update, because I checked the CDC website. I was on there earlier today. As of January 11th, it was updated with fully up-to-date information on ages and who should be vaccinated when. Not quite sure who that speaker was a couple of moments ago, but there's fully up-to-date information there. And David, just wanted to make sure that you knew that it was a January 11th, that everything was very clear on that website. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Seth, I think we're done.
Great. David, again, thank you very much. We appreciate your taking time out. It's not an easy subject, but I think you covered it extremely well, and we appreciate your willingness to join us here today.
Anytime. Thank you, Seth.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Now, from Norwalk, Connecticut, Jessica Bonacek. Economic Development Director for Norwalk. And I think a participant perhaps last year, Jessica?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think this is year 3, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
Are you able to see my screen at all?
Yes.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
if I expand it like this, then you should be able to see it, right?
Yeah.
Excellent. Very good. Well, thank you so much for inviting me back. It's always a pleasure to speak with you, and even via virtual, it's really great to be able to connect with everyone in the community. So thank you so much, Seth, for the invite. Wanted to just take 5 or 10 minutes to run through some of the developments going on in the city of Norwalk, and also run through some of our latest initiatives. So as you heard last year, if you were a part of the meeting, we have a strategy here in Norwalk where we identify where we want to grow, we create prompt and predictable zoning in those areas, and then we invest at the city level in our communities and our neighborhoods, and that attracts people and businesses. So we really think about economic development from the ground up in creating strong communities and strong neighborhoods that are attractive to folks with certain skill sets. And then those folks attract the businesses. And what we're seeing here in Norwalk is nothing different really than what I had talked about last year to a certain extent. I think the interesting thing is that we actually have continued to see a lot of development over the last year. Our permits number has not gone down in any way, shape, or form. And as a matter of fact, we continue to see development in all of our areas across the board, whether it be multifamily focused around the transit nodes, or single family, either on single lots or larger lots that are subdivided. So primarily seeing a lot of growth in South Norwalk, East Norwalk, up at Merritt 7 and Wall Street West Ave, but really seeing it across the board. And I know that Darien seen a lot of growth, especially with some of the work that's going on Post Road. But what's interesting for us is that we actually have even seen a 4-week period here in the city where we received over 185 zoning applications. So I think that's attributed to a couple of different things. One, and I'm sure Darien's seeing the same thing. One is, you know, folks that have lived in their homes for a very long time and may have done work over time, and they want to sell their homes, and they may not have pulled permits in the first place, so they're going through the permitting process now. I think second of all, what we're seeing is folks that are moving in from New York and from more of the denser urban areas, and they're buying homes that may or may not have been updated for the last number of years, and so they're pulling permits in order to be able to do their work. And I think the other thing that we're seeing is just new construction, new rental construction, and I'll get into that in a couple minutes. And then I would say the fourth is that a lot of people are using their homes differently. They've been at home for almost a couple of years now, and at this particular point in time, they're wanting to put pools in, they're wanting to put a shed in, they're wanting to do home renovations. And as a result of that, we're seeing our permits continue as they did even before COVID. So I just wanted to highlight some of the growth that we're seeing in some of the neighborhoods that I had highlighted earlier. So in South Norwalk, right adjacent to the train station there, we have Harborside Sono, which is 129 units of luxury housing. It opened probably a year ago now, and it's over 80% occupied rental units. Sono Metro, which is the picture that you see here on your screen where it says South Norwalk, that building was just received its certificate of occupancy, 122 units and 17,000 square feet of commercial space. And again, just completed and almost fully occupied and fully leased again. We're also seeing 10 Monroe, which is adjacent to the building that you see in your picture here. It's right at Monroe and South Main Street for anyone who knows that particular corner in Norwalk. And again, 150 residential units. The project was just entitled, so it will be starting construction soon. And then, of course, our Soundview Landing, which is the 273 units, which is the reconstruction of Washington Village. So, you know, just a large number of units focused in and around the train station, offering amenities like a swimming pool, offering amenities like the gym. The building that you see in the picture actually has a little mini basketball court in the foyer, in the lobby area. So really modern type buildings, multifamily buildings, and rental. And as I mentioned, they're completely leased, if not completely leased, then almost leased at this particular point in time. For South Norwalk, we have the Sono collection, and I know I mentioned this last time, but I wanted to kind of touch on this because one of the things that we are seeing and one of the things that we're thinking about is the connectivity between the Sono collection and Wall Street West Ave, and also the Washington Sono area. And so the investments that we plan to make are really to be able to enhance the connectivity between the mall itself and those neighborhoods. And I talked to the senior general manager today for the mall. His name is Matt Seebeck. And Matt was saying that they had a really great holiday season. Their numbers are back to the 2019 numbers that they saw before COVID, and they feel really optimistic and really positive about the mall and moving forward. For East Norwalk, for anyone who's driven by down East Avenue lately, we actually have a project that was completed in October 2020, and it was approved for zoning in 2021. But it's fully constructed now. It's 90 units of housing and over 60,000 of commercial space, which is actually a lot of office space with a few restaurants. And again, we're seeing at least at over 80%. So for all of the new units that we've seen constructed, we're really seeing the demand for those particular units and rental units in particular. That's not to say that there's not a demand for single family ownership. We're also seeing that. And I think just like any other neighborhood and across the US at this particular point in time, especially in Lower Fairfield, the real estate numbers are just through the roof, whether it be through rental or ownership. So it's not to say that this increase in rental housing is actually impacting the ownership piece of Norwalk that is moving as well. For Wall Street West Ave, we have a redevelopment plan that was approved in May 2019. We actually increased our enterprise zone territory to include the Wall Street West Avenue area. And those who are not sure what the enterprise zone is, it's a 7-year tax abatement as of right, based on certain investments in the parcels and investments in the building. So we were able to do that in March of 2020. The Toll Brothers purchased the Pinnacle lot, which folks may know, it's over by the new Norwalk Art Space. It's also called sometimes referred to as Loman's Plaza. But there's proposed 393 apartments there with commercial space as well. And they're actually quite active on the site these days. And so we're really looking forward to moving that site along. The hospital, New Vance Health, is going through a $220 million, says explosion, but it's an expansion of a 7-story wing to the existing building. And that's looking at their maternity ward and reconstructing a number of different areas that the hospital's been working on for a long time. So we're really excited about that work as well. And then for Merritt 7, really interesting and exciting projects going on in Merritt 7. Of course, we have over 1.4 million square feet in the actual Merritt 7 development itself, but we also have really interesting innovation center that is being completed as we speak, and it's a research and development with apartments and so on and so forth. It's really interesting. The iPark, which is right on Main Street, has recently obtained approval for 132 residential units. So we're starting to see really interesting complement and balance up there of both office space, medical space, as well as residential units as well. And then of course, the Merritt 7 train station is currently under construction by Connecticut DOT, which is allowing pedestrians to cross over the track. So a lot of work that's going on up there as well. So there's other pieces as well. that are really exciting that are going on in the city. And one is that we have had our zoning in place for approximately 30 years, and we're undergoing a complete zoning rewrite, and we're coming up to the draft version of that report being available. In addition, we're also looking at industrial zones across the city and understanding how the industrial zones are complementary to some of the other parcels that are nearby. In South Norwalk in particular, we have some industrial parcels and commercial parcels that are adjacent to residential parcels. And so we're trying to use the industrial study and the zoning study in parallel with one another to be able to make sense of the zoning regulations that are in place. In addition to those two studies, we're also conducting a waterfront study, and the waterfront study is looking at all of the parcels adjacent to the water and how we can allow for public access as well as the use of those particular parcels. The city recently received $3 million to invest in South Norwalk specifically through an MLK corridor initiative. And the corridor initiative was based on several community members meeting for the last couple of years, identifying priorities, and then we worked with Senator Duff to be able to have $3 million approved through the bond bill. And so that particular funding will support a number of different initiatives, including infrastructure initiatives, playground improvements, as well as streetscape improvements such as street trees and different areas that we would like to be able to create little pocket parks and so on with. And then of course, Manresa Island, which is a 125-acre brownfield parcel, and that plant was closed after Sandy came through, and we've been working really closely with NRG to accept letters of interest from experienced developers, and so that continues to evolve. Don't have any major updates on the Manresa Island. Of course, it's the NRG property, and they own it and are moving that effort forward, but really glad to see that there's progress there. So one of the things that I did want to highlight is that we did go through a lot of work with the businesses in town through COVID. And it's not something that I shared last year, I don't believe, but I just wanted to highlight that we've been working really hard as a city to support businesses across the city. And everything from being able to streamline processes to be able to launch online permitting and convenient drop-offs. We've consolidated websites, and we've been doing free marketing and promotion for all businesses through the Visit Norwalk website and app. So if you have an opportunity to be able to visit Norwalk, please do so, because it's highlighting all of the businesses in town, and we're doing that complimentary based on an investment through the Norwalk Parking Authority and also an investment through the city. Also wanted to touch for 2 seconds on the Economic Community Development ARPA funds. So the city of Norwalk received $39.3 million in ARPA funds, and approximately $6 million or 15% was committed to economic and community development efforts. So we're really excited, much like all the other communities, to be able to receive ARPA funds. And for us, it's a huge opportunity to be able to really take on a number of projects that we've been talking about for the last couple of years, where we may not have had the operating or capital budget to be able to support those efforts. So in addition to the $6 million, we also have $3 million of Urban Act program funding, which I mentioned already through the MLK Corridor Initiative. And then we also have $3.5 million from the GGP, which is the prior owner of the Stono Collection, which a portion of it is focused on economic and community development efforts. So really looking forward to the next number of years here in Norwalk, just an influx of funding, which we're really excited about. And when we look at how we're going to use the ARPA funds, as well as the MLK funds and the GGP funds, we have a large support for businesses looking to support not only existing businesses, but businesses that are starting up through seed funding and looking to support women and minority-owned businesses as well. And if anyone has questions, I'm happy to answer about that. Modernization and support of business, looking to adopt a number of different software tools to be able to allow online permitting and licensing, and looking to digitize all of our paper documents in building and code enforcement and also planning and zoning, not only to help be more efficient within internal government, but also then helping the public have access to all of those documents through the web. For housing, we're looking at not only affordable creation and support affordable housing, but also the scope of affordable housing, so what incomes the affordable housing is open to. And in addition to that, we're also looking at a residential facade program, which is an extension of a program that already existed, where we gave funding to 13 different residential owners and tenants to be able to make improvements to the facade of their building. But in addition to that, we're also looking to launch a housing loan program that would be a revolving fund to allow tenants as well as owners to make improvements to the internal aspects of their home, whether it be a boiler or new windows or HVAC system. So really thinking about how to support different households throughout the city of Norwalk. We have a huge focus on environmental green space, which is really responsiveness to environmental issues, looking at climate change and sea level rise, but thinking about how to introduce street trees, how to introduce green areas, how to introduce solar and different types of green infrastructure to be able to make advancements in this environmental green space. And then lastly, we're thinking about walkability and mobility. And one of the things that we are doing in Norwalk is really focused on how to make sure all the neighborhoods and the communities are connected. And I mentioned that when we talked about the Sono Collection and Wall Street West Ave in Washington, but really trying to make sure that we're solving for the first and last mile, which is the first and last mile to the train station and to and from the homes, and really trying to make sure that pedestrians, cyclists, and vehicles all have a fair share at the road. So thinking about complete streets and the way in which the mobility and connectivity is occurring. So I'll wrap it up there. Lots to talk about when it comes to Norwalk, and really love what the city is doing and love the opportunity over the next couple of years to really advance some of the infrastructure in and around the new development that we're seeing. And we've been spending a lot of time with the community over the last couple of years collecting feedback and collecting comments as part of the work in which we do. And so really excited to be able to move those efforts forward. But here is my contact information, email and phone, and anyone that is interested in getting in contact with me, all 100 of you or 95 of you, more than welcome to take your call or email with you at any point in time. So happy to take questions. Thanks.
Thank you, Jessica. It's great to hear what's going on in the neighborhood. So we had the State of the Town back in December, and so we got a picture of what's going on in our town, and but it's always good to know what's going on in our neighbors as well. So we thank you for taking time out to play with us.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Yes. Thank you. All right. Well, the next item.
Beth, you have a question?
Yes. Question.
Jim Cameron.
Jim.
Thanks, Seth. Thanks, Jessica. Amazing presentation. I'm glad everything is coming up roses in Norwalk.
We're working hard on it.
I know you are. We were saddened by the loss of the Garden Cinema, which means I have not been able to drive by and see the latest. Please tell me that the Tyvek Tower is gone.
So I cannot tell you that the Tyvek Tower is gone, but I can tell you that we are working towards having it be gone. So I can leave it at that, but it is still there, and we're making a lot of progress through the design of the building. And of course, you know that there's there's some legal sort of pieces surrounding that particular project, but we are working through them, and it's a complicated one, but we're looking forward to be able to getting rid of that and having the development come out of the ground the way that it should.
Gotcha. Congratulations on the TOD projects, though.
Thank you very
Seth.
much. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Jim. Others, I'm sorry, I started to go along here.
I don't see any others.
All right. Well, great. Jessica, again, thank you. And perhaps we'll see you next year, huh?
Absolutely, for sure. And if anyone has any questions or wants to touch base, please feel more than welcome to reach out. Thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you. Next item is 22-3-17A18A. I recognize Jack Davis, Chair of F&B, to introduce this motion.
I'm Jack Davis, Chair of the RTM Finance and Budget Committee. I move Resolution 22, 2017A, and 2018A to correct minutes of June 8th, 2020 to append bonding resolutions. Do I have a second?
Jenny Schwartz.
Thanks. If there's no objections, I waive the reading of the resolution. This motion is to fix an oops. On June 8th, 2020, the RTM approved 2 bonding resolutions. And as we discussed, while we approve a bonding resolution, it doesn't mean that the town immediately goes out and issues a bond. And so some of the projects that were included in 2017, which it was authorizing the appropriation of $500,000 to repair sidewalks and replacement, and multiple projects in 2018 are now ready to be bonded. And as the bond council reviewed the minutes, as they do, they discovered that the bonding resolutions were not included in our minutes. So while we approve these, however, bonding resolutions for these resolutions have to be added to the minutes and are required to be part of the meeting records. This resolution appends the bonding resolutions for RTM Resolution 2017, heretofore referred to as 2017A, and RTM Resolution 2018, heretofore referred to as 2018A. The F&B committee met on January 10th and unanimously approved this resolution and recommends the same to the full RTM. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Are there any other committees that wish to report?
I'm not seeing any hands raised.
Any town officials?
Town official wants to speak, you can unmute yourself. I think you can go ahead, Seth.
Okay, and members of the RTM?
I am not seeing any hands raised.
Members of the public?
Don't think we have any.
Thank you. Then we're ready to vote. Let's proceed to vote.
Okay, hang on a second. I am going to close the poll. You had 96% voting yes, 4% abstaining.
Thank you very much. The motion passes. Next item on the agenda is 22-20-26A. Recognize Jack Davis, Chair of F&B.
I'm Jack Davis, District 3 Chair of the RTM Finance and Budget Committee. I move Resolution 22-20-26A to correct the minutes of October 19th, 2020 to append the bonding resolution to said minutes. Do I have a second?
Barry Baldwin.
Thank you, Barry. If there's no objections, I waive the reading of the resolutions. This motion is to fix another oops. On October 19th, 2020, the RTM approved bonding resolution 20-26, authorizing the appropriation for the towns of Darien Sanitary Sewer Project in the amount of $22,340,000 and the authorization of the issuance of bonds and notes to meet the appropriation. Again, we passed it properly. However, in the minutes, the RTM resolution 2026 did not have the bonding resolution. As such, bonding resolution is required to be part of the meeting records. This appends it to put it there. And as such, resolution 20-26 heretofore referred to as 20-26A. The RTM Finance and Budget Committee met on January 10th and unanimously approved this resolution and recommends the same to the full RTM. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Are there any other committees that wish to report?
Not seeing any hands raised.
Okay, are there any town officials?
Town officials can unmute yourself. I think you're good, Seth.
Okay, members of the RTM?
I am not seeing any hands raised.
And members of the public?
Still no public here.
We don't have any public. Oh, okay, fine. So we're ready to vote. Let's go ahead and vote.
Okay, closing the poll. Again, 96% voted yes, no no's, 4% abstained.
Motion passes. Next item is 22-1, motion to amend Appendix B, removing newspaper publication requirements. I recognize Frank Kemp, Chair of TGSNA.
Frank, you need to unmute yourself. Frank, you need to unmute yourself. Got a problem if Frank can't unmute himself.
All right.
I can move the resolution if you like.
There he goes.
Oh, here he is.
I'm Frank Kemp, District 4, and Chair of RTM Town Government Structure and Administration, or TGSNA. I move the RTM Resolution 22-1, which is a motion to amend Appendix B and remove newspaper publication requirements. Is there a second?
Jim Cameron.
Oh, thank you, Jim. If there are no objections, I propose to waive the full reading of the resolution. The TGS&A committee met virtually on Tuesday, January 18th, with 9 of 10 members present to review this request. And they reviewed the background material that's been prepared in support of the resolution. This information is nicely summarized in the letter we all received from Town Clerk Krista McNamara. It is the last page of the information package we all received last Thursday. In her letter, Krista outlined the background of this matter, the issues of the tight time schedule that the current procedure requires, and the costs incurred by purchasing space in the newspaper, and the declining use of the newspaper in contrast to the increased use of the town's website. After reviewing this background material, the TGS&A committee unanimously approved the resolution and recommend approval of the resolution to the full RTM this evening. Respectfully submitted, Frank Kemp, Chair, TGS&A.
Thank you, Frank. Recognize Jack Davis, Chair of the Finance and Budget Committee.
I'm Jack Davis, District 3, Chair of the Finance and Budget Committee. The committee met on January 10th. This resolution has minimal financial impact savings to the town of less than $1,500 annually in direct spend. However, it does provide more effective and efficient workflow within the town clerk office. That cost was not calculated. The committee unanimously approved this resolution and recommends the same to the full RTM. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Are there any other committees which wish to report? Any town
I
official?
don't see any hands raised or.
Okay. Excuse me, any town officials?
Town officials, you can unmute yourself. I think you're good, Seth.
Okay, members of the RTM?
Jim Cameron.
Jim.
Seth, thank you. Frank, thank you very much for the resolution. Jim Cameron, District 4. I guess I have a two-part question. Absolutely agree that people aren't reading the newspapers. There's only one left in town, and its audience is dwindling. But secondarily, as it is important that people in the public know when these board meetings are being held and when the RTM is doing its work, is there anything proactively in the guidance that requires the town to publicize that beyond just filings with the town clerk and on the website?
No, but I will ask town council if he knows of anything.
Wayne, you have to unmute yourself. Wayne, can you unmute yourself?
Kate?
There you go.
Okay, sorry about that. That's a fair question, Jim. Under the existing and remaining section of the code, there is the warning and agenda and resolutions shall be posted to the town's website, which I think is the most common and frequent acquisition of information about your body. And electronically, the information will be distributed and mailed to each RTM member. I think beyond that, there is no specific requirement. There is no specific requirement that any longer that it be posted and published in the newspaper. So I think this is really catching us up with the way people contact us and get information about us in the real world today.
Thank you, Wayne.
Thanks, Wayne. Appreciate it.
Any other members of the RTM?
Looked like Frank Kemp had his hand up there, but then I lost him.
He may have wanted to come. I don't know. He may have wanted to
Okay,
comment.
here you go, Frank.
Thanks for unmuting me. Hey, Jim, good question. We believe that if there are public comments that they miss the newspaper, our town clerk will look benignly on that situation and fix it up. If we receive a flood of objections for the lack of it, the town clerk certainly has the resources to republish again without our approval. They just can do it because the expenses, as Jack says, are nominal. So it's a situation of leave this alone and don't do anything and keep doing the same old thing, or try to take this step forward. And if it turns out that it was not appropriate or unjust, we can certainly undo it. But it's really not a reason to do. It's not a reason to do nothing.
Okay, Frank. Any others?
Mr. Davis?
Yes, Jack.
I just wanted to add something else. In my 15 plus years on the RTM, if there's a resolution that has local interest, the citizens of this community have never failed to show up when we are discussing any of those items. The rest of the course is just doing our normal business. So while I do understand what Jim was asking about, making sure people know, on topics where there is outside interest, word of mouth gets around and they know exactly when the committees as well as the RTM itself is going to be addressing, and they do show up. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Others?
I don't see any other hands raised, Seth.
Okay, then we're ready to vote. Let's go ahead and vote.
Okay, I'm going to close the poll. 89% have voted yes, 7% voted no, and 4% abstained. So how do you wish to proceed?
The item passes at 89%. And
okay.
And so 22-1 passes. And I'll accept a motion to adjourn.
Jack Davis.
And
need a second?
A second, yes. I'm getting text here from
Barry Baldwin.
Great. So the only thing I think I should do, Council, you can correct me, but I think I do have to identify the no votes.
Yes, you should. Yes, you should do that, Seth.
Okay, would you do that for me, Kate? I have to identify the no's.
Okay, so if you voted no on Resolution 22-1 to amend Appendix B, please raise your hand. Okay. We have, let's see, Krista, are you ready to record these?
Yes,
We
Kate.
have Cheryl Russell, Jacqueline Miller, Frank Edelman, Sarah Baldwin, Diane Conalog.
Okay, confirming Cheryl Russell, Jackie Miller, Frank Edelman, Sarah Baldwin, Diane Conalog.
Yes.
Thank you.
Ms. Baldwin has her hand up.
As Ms. Baldwin?
It's gone. Okay.
Okay.
I think you're ready to move on, Seth.
All right, great. So I will take the motion to adjourn again. Thank you.
Okay, motion to adjourn, Clara Sartori.
And the second?
Barry Baldwin.
Okay, thank you, Barry. We'll go ahead and vote.
Someone has voted no.
Okay, so let's record the no.
Okay, let me close the poll. If you wish to vote no on adjourning, please raise your hand. Maybe it was a mistake. I'm not seeing anybody raise their hand, Seth, so I think you're good to adjourn.
All right. So the motion passes and we will adjourn the meeting. Thank you all. Happy New Year.